Massive disclaimer, this is not medical advice. Hi ADHDers, I know it has been such a long time since I've been on YouTube, but I'm back and I'm here to talk about ADHD medication. I will go through my experience taking ADHD medication, why I was actually very against it before I started, different type of ADHD meds, stimulants versus non-stimulants. Of course, we can't talk about medication without obvious side effects, how I chose my ADHD meds based on what my day-to-day life was like, what my ADHD meds have helped with, what it hasn't helped with, and of course alternatives to ADHD medication. And also to discuss the ADHD medication shortage which has been affecting many people with ADHD. Massive disclaimer, this is not medical advice. Speak to your psychiatrist, speak to your doctor, but I think it's important to share my personal experience being on ADHD meds over 4 years now. I definitely appreciate it's been different for other people, but I think it's important to spread knowledge. Having been diagnosed with ADHD combined type via the National Healthcare Service. Alright, let's get comfortable. This is the part where I tell you why I was against ADHD medication. 1, I know medication comes with side effects. 2, I read quite a few things on the internet. 3, I didn't have the knowledge that I needed to have about ADHD medication. Finally, I am anemic and I've suffered from migraines for over 12 years now, and I was taking medication for both of those conditions and it gave me the worst side effects, and I was like, I am not doing this again. But here comes my amazing psychiatrist who gave me this booklet with all of the ADHD medication available in the UK, and we went through it. So let's talk about ADHD medication. So with ADHD medication you have stimulants. Stimulants are known to help people focus and concentrate for loads of periods of time, also to help with motivation levels and reducing hyperactivity. And there are non-stimulants, and that's usually an alternative for people who are unable to take stimulants for a variety of reasons. So an example of stimulants, as is in the booklet. Common ones are methylphenidate, so you may hear of Concerta, Ritalin, Medicanet, or like lisdexamfetamine, like Elvans or Vyvanse. And then you have like non-stimulants, Tomextine, Strattera, etc., etc. Again, everyone reacts to ADHD medication differently. And of course, there are the side effects. But before we get onto the side effects, I should say that each medication stimulants has a duration of action, so how long they tend to be effective for. So you have short-acting meds and extended release meds. Short-acting meds are meds that are effective for, let's say, 2 to 4 hours, if those are the hours you want to be stimulated for. Or there are longer-acting meds where it could last from up to 8 hours to 12 hours. When you first start ADHD medication, there is a titration period, so it's where you try out different dosages, maybe medication, until you find one that best suits you. Most doctors will tell you that this is normal. You're going through a process where it took me 3 years to find one that I was very happy with and really worked well for me. So let's talk about how I chose my ADHD meds. Well, my psychiatrist was really good. I laid out what my day looked like, how long I'd spend at work. I would mention some of the things that I struggle with, and also after work I used to do some programming. I had like a lot of hobbies, so for me I would like to have meds that can help me function and navigate life better within this period. Going through that process should act as like a consultation, and the best person to ask about what works for you is your psychiatrist. Side effects, I was completely unaware. It would completely be remiss of me to talk about ADHD and not talk about the side effects, which is something I will go over briefly, but I do think this is something that you should speak to your doctor about if you are concerned, or if you're watching this and you're experiencing some of these side effects. This is from an NHS document that I was given the day that I was diagnosed, and I was deciding on which ADHD medication worked for me. And they're very different for each medication. I'm not going to go through each one and list it. Lack of appetite. Lots of people with ADHD have experienced this. Headaches, abdominal pain, dry mouth, tics, including Tourette syndrome, and which is something I found very interesting. Yeah, there are side effects. Sexual dysfunction, cardiovascular issues. I actually had to do an ECG. My doctor ordered me a full blood workup just to make sure that my health was in the right condition before I got to increase my dosage. So yes, there are side effects to ADHD meds. Some people experience them, some people experience one or two and find them manageable. But one thing I'd say, not speaking up about a side effect could be a detriment to you long term. And that's something I had to learn. I first started on shorter acting med that lasts about 2 to 4 hours, and I would crash really badly. My appetite was bad, it would mess with my mood. And I didn't say anything for a while because I didn't want to stop taking medications. I didn't want them to take it away from me. But no, I should have. And it took me speaking to another person with ADHD, and they said, no, this is exactly what happened to me. Speak to your doctor. And I did. And I was able to change my medication, and it made a massive difference. So if your medication isn't like working well for you, or you're experiencing some side effects, do raise it with your doctor. Now, all questions you could consider asking your doctor before starting ADHD medication to ensure that you understand, that you're reassured, and that you make the choice that's essentially right for you. Another question you should consider asking your doctor is to explain the difference between stimulants and non-stimulants and what they feel is best for you. Finally, if you have any concerns at all, it's the perfect time to bring them up to your doctor. Like I said earlier on, I didn't want to take medication because I was taking medication and I didn't like side effects, and I didn't want to have to deal with the possible side effects that come with ADHD medication. So those are the questions that come to mind. If you do have any suggestions for anyone else, pop them in the chat in case I might have missed some. Okay, what has ADHD meds helped with? I'm going to say motivation, self-confidence, self-esteem, actually feeling like doing things, being able to start things and finish things at work. So it's made a massive difference in my work life. It's helped with me with communication. I was a really bad communicator. We're taking ADHD meds, and it's crazy. Hindsight is a beautiful thing because looking back, I can see undiagnosed ADHD. Okay, starting with motivation. As an ADHDer, I struggle with procrastination, analysis paralysis, dread, brain fog, overthinking, you name it. Whereas for me, taking my ADHD medication first thing in the morning, it makes me feel like I'm ready to take on the day. I promise you, for me, it's night and day. I could feel like, I don't want to do this, I'm over it. As soon as I take the medication, I'm like, hit the roll, Jack. I am ready. So my motivation levels, which is really good because it's nice to feel good about yourself and your existence and what you're doing. Another thing is self-esteem. So not feeling like a failure, not feeling like I've let people down, not feeling like I've let myself down. And I know it sounds like I'm throwing myself a pity party, but that is the nature of adulting with ADHD. It's not easy, but ADHD medication has really showed me that, seeing what I can do with the medication that helps me to focus and concentrate my brain, that helps me to get up and do that chore, that helps me to reach out to that person, that helps me to reply back, that helps me to follow up with people. So that's been super helpful. Another thing, being better with my finances. As you all know, we ADHDers, we struggle with this thing called ADHD tax, which is said to be the cost associated with having ADHD. So let's say booking the wrong flight ticket because you didn't pay attention to detail, getting a credit card and not reading the terms of condition and having to pay back so much interest, buying something and just not being able to return it, buying food and letting it go off in the fridge. I could go on and on and on. Some of you may have read my article in the BBC about ADHD tax. Taking ADHD medication, being a bit more clear-headed, being proactive, being able to focus and concentrate for moments, enables me to be more patient, to take time to read through things, to process things, has been really helpful. Also, how I manage RSD. I take time to actually weigh up some risks so I don't make as many impulsive decisions. So those are some of the benefits that I found with ADHD medication. I don't want it to make it seem like ADHD medication will fix you, because we're not broken. Our brains just navigate in a different way because we're neurodivergent. But there are many benefits that I see taking ADHD meds in adulthood. What doesn't taking ADHD meds help with? Okay, taking ADHD medication, you will still have ADHD. Surprise, I don't see ADHD medication as a cure, and I also don't see ADHD as a disease that you need to be cured. I just see ADHD medication as a tool in a toolbox of things that helps adults and people to navigate life in a way that's more manageable. Also, when you take ADHD meds, it doesn't mean everything is going to be magically okay. And you know what? It's life. Life happens. And I don't take ADHD medication with the thought of everything's going to be okay, I won't make mistakes, things won't go wrong, I'm going to complete and deliver everything, because that's not how life works, and I don't think that's how we're meant to operate as humans. But I will say is that the meds won't drag me out of bed to sit on my laptop and type things. Yes, the motivation is there, and a lot of the times I feel the urge to, but then also, again, we're human. Basically, you've got to work with your ADHD brain, you've got to work with it. Some of the concerns people have raised with ADHD medication is that they worried that it's going to change their personality, that they'll be more wired and it's going to change the way they come off. It's really interesting because I feel like my personality has stayed the same, but it actually brings it out a bit more, where I'd probably be a bit more in my head about things, but I'm still the same. But of course, everyone's experience is different. Another thing I've noticed since taking ADHD meds is that they tend not to be as effective during, I think there are any studies on this yet, but I've asked on Twitter and a lot of women had replied back saying that they experienced similar, that their ADHD meds not being as effective during that time of the month. Hopefully we do see a bit more studies on how ADHD meds affect us during menstruation, menopause, perimenopause. I think it's really important that we have this information. Meds for me doesn't make me like things that I don't already like. So for example, exercising. I do think exercising is great, especially for someone who has ADHD. I've tried it, I failed, I've tried it, I failed. I probably will keep trying it. Another thing I've noticed is that when you take ADHD meds and you have orange juice, it makes it ineffective. This is something that other people with ADHD have found. I'm not sure if there are actual studies out there, but there's actually quite a few things on the internet. It's something that I've experienced, which is just something you may want to be aware of. What are alternatives to ADHD medication? I know a lot of people are asking themselves this question, even those who probably don't want to take ADHD medication. This might be a hot take, but social media sites or forums are your friend. Of course, there's a lot of trash on there, but where you just have a question and you need a response from people who actually have lived experience makes such a massive difference. I remember when I eventually got diagnosed with ADHD, and all of my tweets were just questions for people with ADHD. Does this make sense to you? Does anybody else do that? And I had a flurry of people answer the questions, tell me about their experience and what has worked for them. So if you're on Twitter, I will use the hashtag AskADHD. Reddit, you might have to trawl through some not so great advice, but there is so much you'll be able to find on the various forums, on the Facebook. I think for me, ADHD for Smart Ass Women has been a great Facebook group. I know there's ADHD men's group. I know there are many different ADHD groups, and it's just such a lovely feeling having people that can relate to you and that you can relate to, and feeling like, okay, this makes sense, okay, I feel very validated, which again is very important. The next one, I found fidget toys super helpful. Fidget gamer pad, fidget cube. I've written something about ADHD and fidget toys, but I think for me, where I'm sat in long meetings at work, having something to fiddle in my hand helps me to actually concentrate, or if I'm meant to be reading a long document, it's almost the way to kind of self-regulate my brain. I like fidget toys. I know it might sound immature because we're adults, but it really helps me. Okay, ADHD coaching. I personally haven't had ADHD coaching, but I know so many people who have, and they found that it's made a massive difference to their life. I'm going to write a description where you work with an ADHD coach. One thing I will say is that they are quite pricey, but I know there are some great coaches out there who are happy to offer it at a discounted rate. If you're in the UK, so Access to Work is a way for people who are disabled to access reasonable accommodations, and you can actually get funding for an ADHD coach through the Access to Work program. I know quite a few people who have done it and managed to get a coach. Another resource you might see here is ADHD flashcards I've created for adults with ADHD, a pack on inattentive type and hyperactive impulsive type, and it lists all of the ADHD traits that are listed in the DSM, but I explain it and include in reasons why we might struggle or thrive in this area, examples for adults, because a lot of the information out there focus on how ADHD presents in kids, and I would say it's different. And then also top tips, so practical tips to basically manage it better, or how to work with your ADHD brain. These are ADHD flashcards. I'm going to put the link below. I've had thousands of people buy them, and so grateful to actually be able to help people with ADHD as someone who has ADHD, and I've had like healthcare trusts by it. So yeah, really thankful and blessed. I should say there are loads of people with ADHD that have released books. I've got quite a bunch of them. I may do another video on that. There are podcasts. I do find the podcast quite inspiring because you can listen to other people with ADHD even in the fields that you're in and that you can relate to. Now there are loads out there. Exercise, that's one suggestion. It's said to be good for your mental health. For me, when I have exercise, to clear my headspace, to get up, to get going. But I think when people think about exercise, they think heavy lifting at the gym or doing some really intense circuit training, but it could just be going for a walk, a light jog, doing some home stretches and home exercises just to get the body moving. Lastly, I think it's important for me to mention that there is an ADHD meds shortage. It has been going on for some time now, and I've read that it's due to a combination of two reasons. One, manufacturing issues. The second thing, an increase in demand of ADHD meds. This is something that's very frustrating. It's affecting many people who use ADHD meds in order to just navigate their day-to-day life. Imagine if a med you're taking that's helping you function just gets taken away, and you don't know when you're going to get your next medication, and no alternative has been given. So give grace to your fellow ADHDers who may have been affected by the ADHD shortage. I know that not all meds are affected. Luckily, my medication hasn't been affected by the shortage, but I have been just checking my pharmacy to see whether they know if there's a shortage coming around so I can prepare myself for that. There are wider issues such as systemic issues with the NHS, severely underfunded. I've read that they're going to start an ADHD task force to look into a few different things relating to ADHD. I'm not sure if anything's going to come of that or how long it will take, but I do hope this is a positive step in the right direction. Yep, that's things you should know about ADHD medication. Of course, it's not everything, so if you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, do pop them in the chat. And yep, that's all from me.